Mr. Brahma Chellaney joining us. First question to you, sir. How do you view the current situation in Bangladesh and vis-a-vis with Sheikh Hasina now in India for the last 24 hours?
There is a dangerous power vacuum in Bangladesh. Sheikh Hasina has been deposed effectively in an army coup. The army watched the protests turn violent. The protest not only turned violent, it took the form of widespread looting and arson, including attacks on public infrastructure. The army allowed that situation to deteriorate to the point of no return. It appears that the army chief was conspiring against the prime minister because he allowed the situation to worsen to the point of no return and then told the prime minister that she had no choice but to leave Bangladesh. So we have these internal forces in Bangladesh and also external forces that had actually conspired against Hasina government for a long time. We've had Pakistan working against her government. Then we've had China of late expressing displeasure with Hasina, and the US under Biden since last year threatened to impose sanctions on the Hasina government to ensure free and fair elections. So powerful forces outside and as well as powerful forces inside both have ensured that Hasina is out of power, and the situation today is so dangerous in terms of because of the instability and the threat of continuing disorder. There can be no governance of any kind without public order being restored. So the biggest task facing the interim government, which has still not been formed, is to have at least a semblance of law and order.
Rajiv Dogra, yesterday we discussed at length on what possibly this means for Bangladesh and what it actually even means for India. But right now, India clearly in a catch-22 situation because it seems no country quite wants Sheikh Hasina or to offer her asylum. They are looking at certain European countries. India would not want Sheikh Hasina to overstay her diplomatic, welcome. How do you read the situation?
Well, I don't think we should second guess at the moment India's priorities or India's options, because there are many things which the government does not want to disclose for clear and strategic and obvious reasons. So let me leave India aside for a moment, because we'll get to know India's wisdom and India's choices in the coming days and weeks. But let me focus on the effect that Bangladesh and its crisis has had on the wider world. And I refer here to the British trickery. Because if I heard your report right, then Britain has come up with a new theory that if a person, if a VIP or if a deposed leader lands in one country first, then he has to stay or she has to stay in that country. Now, this has never happened before. After all, British, once upon a time, prided itself in offering asylum. British, in recent years, has been, most welcoming to crooks and the convicts of a second country, in this case, India. I mean, Britain is full of people who run away from India after committing a financial crime, and they're finding safe haven there. So Britain is an expert at this kind of trickery with rules, interpretations, and what suits it at a particular moment. It has forgotten about human rights. It's forgotten about its traditional values of welcoming a political seeker of asylum. The reason here is what they do not want to disclose is that Bangladeshi community in
internal politics, yes,
is a volatile one. And just now, Britain is in flames in many of its parts, so it does not want to add to its agony. And that is why it said that temporarily we do not want her here. Let us first settle our own house. So the other thing, the other signal that it gives, the British reaction again, I'm focusing on that, is how the world has changed. The world has indeed become very small. It has become very flat. So the consequences of a situation in a particular country or in a particular place of the world has ripple effect in far distant shores. So we are, if I may carry on for a few more seconds, we are in a particularly delicate situation because please remember, Sheikh Hasina provided us a zone of comfort in an otherwise very, very turbulent neighborhood for us.
True.
Now that zone of comfort may not any longer be available, as history was proved when Sheikh Hasina or Mujibur Rahman were no longer governing Bangladesh. We had a very almost hostile government in place during those years. So what shape the new government takes, what policies it adopts remains to be seen. But I don't think we will have Bangladesh as a zone of comfort in the months and years to come.
But, you are right there in that aspect. Does expose the hypocrisy of the United Kingdom in refusing asylum to Sheikh Hasina, a leader on her own right who's been persecuted in her country. But I just want to bring in Lieutenant General Satish Dua into this conversation as well. And General Dua, taking off from what Rajiv Dogra was saying, Sheikh Hasina till now, has been in the subcontinent, India's closest geopolitical partner. Not having her there puts India in a very uncomfortable spot because we really don't know what's going to come next.
That's right. We have some huge security concerns depending on the dispensation that will come next. Because India has the longest border that India has is with Bangladesh. Surprisingly, it's longer than China at 4,096 kilometers. Now, this is a very porous border. And depending on the dispensation or the new dispensation, we are likely to see some migration, some immigrants moving across the borders to the neighboring states. And when that happens, then hardliners, ISI is bound to make its entrance now that Jamaat-e-Islami is going to be a part of the dispensation. It was present in the all-party meeting that was taking place yesterday. So with that kind of tendencies, we are likely to see hardliners also try to push in across the borders into India. And that is going to be a security issue for our country. Second, and the only other thing that I would like to say is before Sheikh Hasina's term, which has been a very long term, there were terrorist groups that acted in northeastern states, that operated in our northeastern states. They found safe havens. They had terrorist camps across the border in Bangladesh. Now there is a danger of that getting revived again. And if that happens, then other than Manipur, the rest of the northeast is comparatively stable, and Manipur doesn't have a border with Bangladesh. That terrorism angle could start off acting up again and create more problems for us. So I think these are the two security concerns which India needs to watch very, very keenly.
Mr. Brahma, Chellaney, to bring you in on this, because these two security concerns, where you have the Jamaat, the hardliners, where you have the principal opposition, the Bangladeshi Nationalist Party, the BNP, which has always favored China and, keeping in mind the historical distrust between China and India, doesn't augur well for India.
You're absolutely right. Whichever way you look at this situation, it represents a huge setback to Indian interests. But apart from the strategic setback, it's a setback to Indian interests in specific areas. For example, the connectivity with Pakistan, with Bangladesh, the investment, the transit rights that India had through Bangladesh, the defense-related projects that India was pursuing with Bangladesh, all are at stake now. And as the General pointed out, General Dua, that we face the specter now of ISI reestablishing its base in Bangladesh and trying to destabilize our northeast. So not only is it a setback to our security and anti-terrorism cooperation with Bangladesh, we face the possibility that Bangladesh will once again become a haven for anti-India forces, including from Pakistan and China. China is already using Myanmar to infiltrate weapons into India. Some of these northeastern Indian insurgents go for training to China through Myanmar. In Myanmar, we are already having a virtual civil war that has been fueled by foreign powers. And now foreign powers have also been indirectly involved in what has unfolded in Bangladesh. So whichever way you look at it, this is a huge challenge for India. In fact, several of India's neighbors are now unstable. But Bangladesh being unstable is going to be a huge blow to Indian security because, as General Dua pointed out, it's a very long border, the longest border we have with any neighboring country, but also it's a very porous border. It's a porous border that is almost impossible to patrol effectively. So internal developments in Bangladesh, especially a Bangladesh that's destabilized, a Bangladesh that is under the Islamist influence, will have cross-border impacts on India's internal security. So for India, almost overnight, the situation has changed regionally.